Hello, my name is Stuart Davies. I'm the editor of Sherlock magazine and several books about Sherlock Holmes, including Starring Sherlock Holmes, which charts the great detective's film career. I'm here to talk about perhaps the most popular of the Universal series of Holmes movies, The Scarlet Claw. The credits, featuring Rathbone-Bruce wreathed in fog, are suited to this particular movie more than any other in the series. Please note the number of names involved in the screenwriting process. The screenplay itself was penned by Edmund L. Hartman and Roy William Neill. Hartman had already contributed to the script of Sherlock Holmes and the Secret Weapon, and of course Roy William Neill was the producer, as well as the director on the series. His contribution to this screenplay reveals his total involvement in the project, but more of that later. The plot was influenced to some extent by Conan Doyle's The Hound of the Baskervilles, the recreation of a mythical monster to mask a series of murders. The location is not Dartmoor, it's not even England, but Canada. But for all intents and purposes, it is the never-never Gothic land of Sherlock Holmesiana, and Roy William Neill knew this. This timeless, fog-besmirched locale was far removed from the real world of battles, Nazis, and social deprivation experienced by the cinema-goers of 1944. A lovely touch at the beginning of this film is that the first person to speak after the atmospheric opening is the murderer, the perpetrator of the horrible crimes. And he is presented as a mild-mannered comic character. No one is going to suspect this little creature, Potts the postman.
Who could be ringing the church bell at this time? Maybe it ain't an ooh, Father. Maybe it's an it. And maybe it's tolling the bell.
Oh, there's no such things as ghosts and monsters. Haven't I made that clear to you?
Something tore the throats out of Charlie Rousseau's sheep.
The sense of claustrophobic fear, dark, gory irrationalities, sheep with their throats torn out, are well established in this scene. A far cry from the spies and ciphers that Holmes had to deal with in the early entries in this series. The ghosts and monsters mentioned here definitely turn up the Gothic mood, just as Doyle did in The Hound of the Baskervilles. In this novel, for some time, the reader, the audience, is made to feel unsure whether a logical reason exists for the crimes, or is it really a thing of ghostly origin, a battle between science and the supernatural. This notion is strengthened in The Scarlet Claw by this feature coming from the studio that produced most of the monster movies of the period: House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, The Mummy's Ghost, Son of Dracula, The Mad Ghoul, etc. These sets are reminiscent of the Wolfman movies made earlier in the 40s.
I'd better deliver that letter to the manor. I'm sure it's important.
Here's a lovely crane shot of Lord Penrose's house. One wonders why Universal did not set this movie in Britain. Part of the reason lies in the genesis of the script. Originally, the studio writers, Paul Gangelin and Brenda Weisberg, concocted a story called Sherlock Holmes versus Moriarty. And when screenwriters Edmund L. Hartman and Roy William Neill began to work on their concept, they dropped the Moriarty angle altogether. He was out of the picture, literally and metaphorically. And they came up with the title Sherlock Holmes in Canada. This in turn became the Scarlet Claw on the first day of shooting. The butler here, Drake, is played by Ian Woolf. He was part of the unofficial repertory company the studio used on the series. He appeared in 4 of the Universal Holmes films in all. As well as this movie, he was in Sherlock Holmes in Washington, 43, The Pearl of Death, 1944, and Dressed to Kill in 1946. L'Amour Rouge, of course, is French for the Red Death. One wonders how the estate agent sold properties in this grimly named hamlet. We've already seen the fluid camera work of George Robinson, the director of photography. Here's more. He had worked previously with Rathbone on the visually exciting Son of Frankenstein, 1939. Sadly, this was Robinson's only Holmes film.
Mr. Holmes? Facts are always convincing, Lord Penrose. It's the conclusions drawn from facts that are frequently in error.
Yes, in the case of the Hound of the Baskervilles, as well as in the adventure of the Sussex Vampire.
So we get in this scene a direct reference to 2 of Holmes's supernatural cases from the Doyle canon, the Hound of the Baskervilles and the Sussex Vampire, thus informing the audience we are in similar territory. Holmes, of course, remains sceptical, in keeping with his character, but we know bogeymen are about. And here we get the legend of L'Amour Rouge, which bears some similarities to the legend of the Hound of the Baskervilles.
I hardly think the tales of superstitious peasants can be considered...
I haven't finished, Mr. Holmes. L'Amour Rouge has again been the scene of these strange and unexplainable occurrences. Unexplainable, that is, from your point of view. Several of our most responsible citizens have actually seen the strange apparition on the marshes at night.
Lord Penrose is played by another of the Universal Stock Company, the smooth Paul Kavanagh, he with the fading matinee idol looks. He spent his career playing elegant villains, understanding husbands and murder victims. In 1934, he appeared opposite Mae West in Going to Town and featured in one of the first 3D films, The House of Wax, in 1953, alongside Vincent Price. Apart from The Scarlet Claw, he appeared in 2 other Universal Holmes films, The House of Fear, 1944, and The Woman in Green, 1945.
The supernatural is merely supposition, and therefore cannot be accepted without further data.
Your opinions, Mr. Holmes, are undoubtedly the result of your inability to cope with something beyond the realm of your comprehension.
So, man,
I'm sorry, John, but this ridiculous skepticism...
Yes, what is it, my boy?
L'Amour Rouge on the telephone, sir. Very urgent, my lord.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
The Scarlet Claw was the 6th film in the Universal series. It began filming on January the 12th, 1944. Paul Landers, the picture's editor, recalled that everybody involved was very excited about this film because we all knew it was far superior to anything else in the series. Indeed, the crew even went out on location, which was a rarity for studio-bound B-movies series at this time. The crew went out to shoot at nearby Nagana Rocks, a reasonable substitute for the Canadian marshlands, especially when the smoky fog machines got going. So wrapped up in the project was director Roy William Neill, and so determined was he to get it right, that he ran over on the 16-day shooting schedule by 3 days. This again was quite remarkable for assembly line pictures as the Holmes series was regarded. Quite wrongly, I think. The Scarlet Claw therefore completed filming on February the 3rd, 1944. The hotel clerk we're about to see is Olaf Hitton. He started out in this series as an admiral, Admiral Sir John Prentice, in Sherlock Holmes and the Voice of Terror, 1942. Then he dropped a few ranks to Captain Mackintosh in Sherlock Holmes Faces Death, and now he's really demoted, both in stature and screen time. After this, he appeared fleetingly in several of the series and was in the last episode, Dressed to Kill, as a tour guide. What a dramatic decline.
Listen to this, Watson.
One review of The Scarlet Claw noted that our old friend Sherlock Holmes is snooping around misty marshes again. And indeed, the Gothic touch, which initially had been injected into the series in the 4th entry, Sherlock Holmes Faces Death, had been missing from the subsequent movie Spider-Woman, 1943, the first in the series to drop the name Sherlock Holmes from the title.
Signed Lillian Penrose.
Lady Penrose? A letter from the dead woman? Or what's it mean, Holmes?
The Spider-Woman screenplay was by Bertram Milhauser, and it had originally been titled Sherlock Holmes in Peril. Well, he's always in peril, I suppose.
If Penrose is right...
Milhauser included elements from several of the Doyle stories, including The Final Problem, where Holmes is presumed dead, and the use of a pygmy adversary from The Sign of Four. Spider-Woman, along with The Pearl of Death, is a truly modern, stylish Holmes film that rejects the war theme of the earlier movies and does not try to wrap the detective up in a deceptive Gothic fog. More of Spider-Woman later.
We accepted a commission from the victim to find her murderer. For the first time, we've been retained by a corpse.
It says Penrose Manor, 1852, but the door and the architecture are pure American 1940s. Listen carefully, and you can detect from the acoustics that Nigel Bruce's line about the cold, cheerless room has been added after filming.
What a cold, cheerless-looking room.
Aficionados of the series will also recognize those doors with the angular carvings. They feature in so many of the entries in so many houses of different architectural designs. Frank Skinner's music, arranged by Paul Sortel, does much to heighten the dramatic effect of George Robinson's wonderfully eerie compositions here. This was Rathbone's 8th outing as Sherlock Holmes on screen. After the two successful 20th Century Fox films in 1939, The Hound of the Baskervilles and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, this studio decided not to continue the series, which was set in the authentic Victorian period. However, Rathbone and Nigel Bruce continued to play Holmes and Watson on radio. The success of the radio programmes prompted Universal Studios to initiate negotiations with Conan Doyle's trustees early in 1942. The author had died in 1930, but his creation continued to fill the coffers of his estate. Rathbone and Bruce were signed up to star, and the series was turned over to Howard Benedict, the newly hired associate producer, recently recruited from RKO Radio Pictures. It was all systems go.
I'm convinced that the solution of this horrible deed lies in an understanding of psychic phenomena. Although I don't expect you to admit that, Mr. Holmes.
I assure you, Penrose, I neither believe nor disbelieve in anything, including...
From the start of the Universal series, it was decided that Holmes was to be updated. This Sherlock was to be a modern fellow. And in the first 3 movies, the Baker Street sleuth was pitted against Nazi agents. The studio eventually realized that the real appeal of the Holmes stories was in the solving of cunning mysteries in gloomy settings, old houses. So they set about shifting the backdrop to these modern Holmes films away from the war to timeless settings, somewhat removed from the real world, like Musgrave Manor in Sherlock Holmes Faces Death, Drearcliff House in House of Fear, and of course, La Mort Rouge.
Holmes, I've seen it before.
Right, Watson, you have.
Yes, but where?
Never mind that now. We must examine the wound before Penrose returns and has us thrown out of the house.
Clumsy job. Just missed the jugular vein. It must have bled to death.
And it bled for several hours, eh?
Possibly more.
Long enough for Penrose to leave La Mort Rouge and reach Quebec in time for the meeting?
One of the regular features of these films were moments like this, where Holmes suggests to Watson, and of course indirectly to the audience, that a certain character could be the culprit. Here the seeds are sown that Lord Penrose could have committed the crime.
There is another who desired the death of...
Rathbone was probably at his peak as Holmes in this movie. By the time the series ended, he was thoroughly fed up of the character. And who could blame him? Making on average 3 films a year as Holmes, as well as playing the character on radio for months on end. Rathbone complained in his autobiography that people called out to him in the street, "Hi there, Sherlock," instead of "Hi there, Basil." Here's another example of Bernard Robinson's photography, almost in the mode of German expressionism in its harsh use of black and white contrasts.
And that she's Lillian Gentry.
Lillian Gentry?
Will you leave, or must I call the police?
That will not be necessary. We're on our way to the police station now.
This is a typical start to a scene in these movies. A broad, high view of the room or location, and then slowly panning in, drawing the viewer, as it were, into the action. Here we get the first sight of the murder weapon, the five-pronged garden weeder, the Scarlet Claw of the title.
I use it to weed the garden at the back of the jail.
I'm inclined to agree with the Sergeant Holmes. A weapon such as that would have severed the jugular vein.
This is Sergeant Thompson, played by David Clyde, a Scotsman in Canada, as it were. Clyde also appeared in The House of Fear, 1945, which suited his accent better. It was set in Scotland. Up to now, Nigel Bruce has behaved in a reasonably intelligent fashion. Shortly, his character will wander off into the realms of comedy and farce. The use of Watson as a comic character to bring lighter moments to these dark films was a deliberate ruse by the Universal team, partly to elevate the character of Watson in terms of importance and screen time, and partly to give the character something to do. The Watson of the Doyle tales was a storyteller and observer, not a role that transfers effectively to the screen. Rathbone, as the ultimate supercilious Holmes, seemed to accept and tolerate his friend's simplicity, while at the same time being somewhat cruel and sarcastic about his feelings. Certainly this Holmes and Watson's relationship is far, far cry from the one created by Conan Doyle.
I think that can be arranged, though.
Yes, we can stop over the farmyard and you can shoot all the chickens you want.
That's all very funny, Holmes.
Here you are, old fellow. We're going to engage rooms at Monsieur Journet's hotel.
The following scene begins with another put-down for Watson. Indeed, Bruce as a performer seemed to enjoy the opportunity to be both petulant and huffish. This is Marie Journet, played by Kay Harding, who one critic noted had a French accent as awkward as her acting. This seems to be the only film in which she appeared in a featured role. Strangely, Marie and her father are the only inhabitants of La Mort Rouge who have French names and accents. The rest of the inhabitants in this gloomy French-Canadian backwater speak English. In fact, one could almost be in England, which I suspect is what the Universal folk wanted us to think. Some more bluster from Watson, which the acoustics tell us was added after the scene was shot.
Wouldn't I be unhappy if my father was seen my father for years? Father died about 20 years ago in Cheltenham.
An in-joke coming up. When Journet looks at the register to see who the two strangers are, we see above the entry of the names Holmes and Watson the name Tom McKnight, New York. Tom McKnight worked on the series as a Conan Doyle consultant and contributed, uncredited, to the script of The Scarlet Claw. Here comes the innocent postman, played by Gerald Hamer. Hamer first appeared in the Holmes films in Sherlock Holmes in Washington, an unbilled performance. There followed appearances in Sherlock Holmes Faces Death, 1943, this movie, and Pursuit to Algiers, 1944, and Terror by Night, 1945. He was a British character actor and reached his greatest prominence in the Universal series, and in this film in particular, where he plays several characters. His guise as an innocent postman is reminiscent of a Father Brown story, where the postie is the murderer, a fact that Watson lights upon later, but typically fails to see the significance of the remark. Notice how he crashes into the table. I can't see that as being scripted. Either that was kept in because it helped to make the postman seem comic or incompetent, or more likely, that they hadn't time or money to reshoot. Despite his huffy-puffy avuncular ways, white hair and rotund appearance, Nigel Bruce was actually 3 years younger than Rathbone. Unlike Rathbone, he was quite happy to carry on playing his part in these films and on radio forever. When Rathbone left the film and the radio series in 1946, Bruce was very annoyed with his old friend and continued to play Dr. Watson on radio, with Tom Conway stepping into Rathbone's shoes as Holmes. This time, Bruce got top billing.
I'll teach you to keep your mouth shut.
Monsieur Journet,
Just why are you leaving La Mort Rouge?
Journey is played by Arthur Hole. He had appeared in the previous film, Spider-Woman, as the expert Adam Gilflower. The eponymous Spider-Woman was played by Gail Sondergaard, who made a Hollywood career out of playing spooky women with a certain dark sexuality. She was memorable in the Bob Hope classic The Ghost Chasers, 1939. So effective was she in the role of Adria Spedding, the Spider-Woman, that Universal signed her to a long-time contract before the film completed production in May 1943. In 1946, Sondergaard appeared in a horror B-movie, The Spider-Woman Strikes Back, although it had no connection with the Holmes film. In this one, she played a character called Zenobia Dollard. However, the film also featured Milburn Stone, who had been the romantic hero in Sherlock Holmes Faces Death, and Rondo Hatton, the memorable creeper in The Pearl of Death. It's in this scene that the film racks up a notch. Holmes clearly establishes that we are not dealing with a phantom monster, but a real killer who used the garden weeder as a weapon.
No. I was just remarking a coincidence.
I thought you didn't believe in those things, Holmes.
Quite right, Watson, I don't. At least, not in the supernatural variety. Not the werewolf who bites into his victim's throat with his teeth. But, a monster who uses for his weapon of death a 5-pronged garden weeder, yes, that's a little more in my line.
The script allows Holmes to be clever in this scene, producing the 4-pronged garden weeder to frighten Journey into revealing his fears. It's a good job Holmes shows some perception at this juncture of the film, because in essence he is fairly incompetent in solving the mystery. 3 people die before he traps the killer. However, this is fairly traditional with whodunits. There have got to be a fair number of dead bodies before the denouement, but it throws a dim light on Holmes' reputation as a sharp-minded sleuth. On the other hand, if he solved the mystery straight away, there wouldn't be a film, or a very short film at least.
I swear to you, I know nothing about its being here.
Haven't we better send for that fellow, Sergeant Thompson?
No, Watson, that won't be necessary. Monsieur Journet knows as well as we do that you can't run away from yourself. Oh, would you be so good as to return this to Sergeant Thompson, monsieur? I took it away quite by accident.
Monsieur Journet knows as well as we do. You can't run away from yourself.
Rathbone's voiceover here is a clever and frightening device. He does a triple function. It reiterates what Holmes thinks, it confirms what Journey thinks, and it establishes what the murderer thinks. These clever touches help to elevate this movie above its B-movie status.
Keep a particularly sharp eye on Journey.
As you sort of take over the case.
That's right, old boy. I want to get a good night's rest before starting out again in the morning. Oh, and incidentally, make yourself as inconspicuous as possible.
Universal were very successful at turning Nigel Bruce's Watson into a comic character. They were so successful that a generation of moviegoers and beyond thought of the character in those terms. The literary origin was virtually forgotten. It says much for Bruce's performance that he in essence created a new Watson, which was vivid and memorable. The use of Watson as a comic character allowed the writers to pad the story with whimsical scenes featuring the silly old buffoon. The thin, clean-shaven ugly mug is an actor who goes under the wonderful name of Skelton Nags. One almost thinks of him as Skeleton Nags, so thin and corpse-like is he. He appeared as a killer in another of the series, Terror by Night, 1946. Here, as in The Hound of the Baskervilles, Holmes misleads Watson as to his intentions, giving his friend a task to carry out while he goes off to investigate. We know as soon as Rathbone's Holmes tells Watson to make himself inconspicuous, he will fail miserably in this. So often in these movies, Holmes carries out serious work while Watson remains to provide a lighter moment. Bruce's solo comic routines grew as the series progressed. In the previous film, Spider-Woman, he not only failed to recognize Holmes in disguise, as the real Watson failed to in the story of the empty house, when the detective had returned from the Reichenbach Falls. But Bruce's Watson, in Spider-Woman, goaded by Holmes, disguised as a postman, knocks the detective down, nearly knocks him out. The screenwriter Bertram Milhauser developed this idea later in the film, by having Watson believe that a heavily bearded and bespectacled ghoul visitor with a hoarse voice was in fact Sherlock Holmes in disguise. Bruce's attempt to pull off the man's beard, believing that he is unmasking his friend, just as Holmes enters the room to disabuse him of his foolish notions. Before The Scarlet Claw was released, the next movie in the series was being filmed, The Pearl of Death, based more closely on a Conan Doyle tale than any other in the series. The story was The Six Napoleons. Again, Bertram Milhauser was brought in to write the screenplay. Howard Benedict, the executive producer of the series, rated this as his favourite, as did the celebrated film historian and critic Leslie Helliwell, he of Helliwell's Film Goes Companion. Monsieur Journet's bar may be filled with grotesques, but none can compare with the creeper in The Pearl of Death. He was played by Rondo Hatton, an unfortunate actor who suffered from acromegaly, a disease which causes excessive growth of the hands, feet and face. This deformity gave Hatton a brief spell of notoriety in horror films and dark mysteries of this period, including The Spider-Woman Strikes Back in 1946, the year his condition brought about his death at the age of 50. The Pearl of Death, filmed between April 11th and May the 1st, 1944. This movie and The Scarlet Claw were the apex of the Universal series.
I never drink anything stronger than milk.
Teetotal?
No, hiccups. Every time I drink alcohol, I have hiccups.
Sorry.
Increasing his role as a red herring, here we see Journet enter Sherlock Holmes's bedroom. One must note that Journet is wearing a checked shirt. This matters later in the plot.
Mr. Holmes. Mr. Holmes.
The old body in the bed trick. La Montrouge has its swamps. One false step. Just like the Grimpen Mire of the Hound of the Baskervilles. At every turn, the deliberate similarities are resonant.
It's dangerous on the marshes at night. These swamps. No, one false step.
I'm sorry, Sergeant, but it's important that I go alone. I'll keep close to the path.
Well, will Dr. Watson be going with you?
No, Sergeant. I asked him to do some research work of his own, and by now he's probably magnificently involved. Good night.
Good night, Mr. Holmes.
But according to your theory, Dr. Watson, everyone in the village is under suspicion.
There is a reference in this scene to G.K. Chesterton's Father Brown story, The Invisible Man. Watson showing an unusual literary erudition here. The murderer in Chesterton's story is the Invisible Man because he is a postman. That is, no one ever notices a postman. They are part of everyday life and not out of the ordinary. Invisible, in fact. Watson doesn't realize that he has put his finger on one of the keys to this mystery, and cleverly the murderer Potts even points that he, like the killer in the Father Brown story, is a postman.
Thanks. Had me worried.
It is a cunning ploy of the scriptwriters to yoke the inebriated, incompetent Watson with the quirky postman in this scene as a kind of drunken double act. Not only does it prompt wry amusement in the audience, but effectively creates the impression that Potts the postman is just a silly local, certainly not a candidate for the role of avenging murderer.
Good night, Doctor.
Good night.
It's right all right.
Skelton nags again. This is a red herring scene. Journet, knowing that Holmes is not in his bed, is going out. Journet, for the moment, becomes one of the key suspects, his unkindly treatment of his daughter, his investigation of Holmes' room, knowing that he is not asleep but out investigating, and the fear exhibited by Marie as her father disappears into the mist. And of course later, Jaunet's penchant for wearing check shirts further increases his candidacy for the role of killer. And so we come to one of the most exciting scenes in the film. The atmosphere is so reminiscent of The Hound of the Baskervilles. Misty, dark, uncharted terrain, and the monster of La Mort Rouge. This terrain is so typical of the universal horror films of the period, in particular those fog-drenched chillers, The Wolfman and Frankenstein Meets Wolfman, the latter movie actually directed by Roy William Neill. The bell ringing is a forewarning of death, and forewarning of death became a kind of motif in several of the films in the series. Apart from this movie, in Sherlock Holmes Faces Death, there was the clock that chimed 13, and in The House of Fear there were the orange pips, which presaged the death of one of the good companions.
He went out in the marshes alone. I tried to go with him, but they refused.
But great Scott, if he runs into this monster and he's by himself, he'll get killed.
And so, the monster is about to appear. John P. Fulton, an employee of Universal, was brought in to create this apparition, and a brilliant job he did of it too. No hound in the many versions of The Hound of the Baskervilles on screen glowed with such menace as this. If only he had been involved in the 1939 production of that movie, we might have had a hound that came somewhere near to matching the description penned by Arthur Conan Doyle. It was Fulton who created the amazing effects in the Invisible Man films, the first made in 1933 with Claude Rains. It was a wonderful technical achievement in the early days of the talkies, seeing a man disappear before your eyes. Universal resurrected the character in the 40s in a series of B-movies. The Invisible Man Returns, 1940, which starred Vincent Price, and Cedric Hardwicke, father of the great TV Dr. Watson, Edward Hardwicke. Then there was The Invisible Woman, 1941. She was Virginia Bruce. But the movie also starred John Barrymore, who had played Sherlock Holmes in a movie of the same name in 1921.
Are you all right?
Then came The Invisible Agent. Cedric Hardwicke appeared again, but this time the cellophane man was John Hall. Hall played the lead in the last of this miniseries, The Invisible Man's Revenge, 1944, the same year as The Scarlet Claw. The cast also featured Evelyn Ankers, who appeared in 2 of the Holmes films, and Gail Sondergaard, fresh from her web as Spider-Woman.
Like a roaring furnace, with spitting fire in all directions. Before I could get my revolver, the thing was upon there. The next thing I knew, I was in the bog.
Are you all right, Mr. Holmes? I heard shots.
Yes, I'm all right, but Dr. Watson here seems to have encountered the monster.
He has?
Come on, old fella. We'd better get you out of these wet clothes and into a hot tub before you catch a death of cold. Yeah, you've had enough of that.
This is almost a repeat of the scene from The Hound of the Baskervilles, when Watson discovers Holmes has been on Dartmoor all the time, spying on events, without confiding in him. Bruce's Watson is more mellow than Doyle's doctor, who bleats to Holmes, "You use me, but don't trust me." Here, the universal Watson merely observes, "I've a right to share your danger."
I can now state positively that our antagonist is not a phantom.
But the thing actually spat flames at me.
As a youngster, when I first encountered this film on television, I was always fascinated by this scene, which is carried out by Rathbone, half in and half out of his overcoat. What possessed the director Neill to allow him to carry out this conversation in such a fashion? Was there a point? Was it an attempt to replicate the famous traditional Ulster cape? Surely not. But it's very odd.
I'd like a few words with you, Mr. Holmes. I'll come directly to the point. Hello? What happened to your assistant?
I'm not his assistant.
This again, of course, is a red herring scene. Lord Penrose's behaviour here is calculated to make you think he's the phantom murderer. Paul Kavanagh adopted the same shifty behaviour as another suspicious character in The House of Fear. In that, he played Dr. Merivale, a medic with a murky past. Holmes observed about him, "Once a man has dipped his fingers in blood, he will feel the urge to kill again." Good line.
I confess that I find myself baffled. I'm a detective. I need tangible clues. And up to now, I admit
Like Sherlock Holmes faces death and the Scarlet Claw, The House of Fear attempts to create the impression that the events taking place on screen are from an earlier age, well before the 1940s. The screenplay was by Roy Chancellor, a new writer to the series, who took elements from the Conan Doyle story, The Five Orange Pips.
I don't like that fellow, Holmes. Why do you think he came here?
He wanted to find out if we discovered anything. He seemed very pleased when I told him we hadn't. Now, Watson, there are one or two questions I want to ask Sergeant Thompson. You stay here. I have a vitally important job for you.
Ah, the coat's on at last.
What do you do?
Go to bed.
The only element to remain in The House of Fear, from Doyle's story, The Five Orange Pips, was the use of the pips themselves as a warning to the recipient that he has little time to live. It was an effective but pointless device from the plot perspective. It was merely added to give the film a greater sense of danger. Under the working title The Murder Club, the movie was shot in May 1944. The title was changed post-production to The House of Fear. Universal was keen on house movies around this time. There was The House of Frankenstein, The House of Dracula, and The House of Horrors. And in 1939, Universal had already produced another movie called The House of Fear, featuring a murderer in a haunted theatre. So perhaps The Murder Club might have been a better title. Taylor here, the storekeeper, is played by Harry Allen, a Universal bit player who, as we can hear, can only approximate an English accent. One must ask why he should have to. This is set in Canada, so an American accent would be acceptable, or Canadian, or French. Again, it is part of the impression the film wishes to make, that the setting is not specific, or if it is in some fantasy old world England.
Hello, operator? Give me Judge Brisson's home, will you? Thank you.
Nora. Let it ring. Haven't I told you not to answer the phone at night?
Yes, sir.
Well, then obey my orders.
Judge Brisson is played by Miles Mander, another British actor with a fine British accent. He was a veteran of Sherlock Holmes movies. In 1932, Mander appeared in The Missing Rembrandt, the second in the series of Holmes films made in Britain, featuring Arthur Wantner as the great detective. He appears in the next Universal Holmes movie after The Scarlet Claw, The Pearl of Death. The same year as he made The Scarlet Claw, he also appeared with another great detective, Philip Marlowe, played by Dick Powell, in Farewell, My Lovely.
On the door. One of them knew. Yes, I should say that Lady Penrose's death had increased Judge Brisson's terror.
This is rather an unpleasant scene from the way Rathbone-Bruce Holmes patronises Bruce's Watson, rather like an intolerant father to his irritating child.
Yes, Watson.
Good Fido. Good Fido. Good Monty. Good Winnie.
Who is it?
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. I telephoned Judge Brisson we were coming.
You can't come in. He's given orders no one is to be admitted.
You wouldn't want Judge Brisson's death on your hands, would you?
No, sir.
Then you'd better let us in.
Nora the maid is played by Victoria Horn, who was in fact an American comedienne, just 23 when she made this movie. She also adopts a British accent for the film. In real life, she married the comic actor-singer Jack Oakey. Later, she appeared with James Stewart in Harvey, the classic 1950 comedy about a giant invisible rabbit. In The Scarlet Claw, she plays it straight. You will have noticed, of course, that Judge Brisson is wearing a check shirt. The same design, we imagine, as the fragment Holmes found after the monster had disappeared.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, that I did not want to see you. I don't want to see anyone.
But I want to see you.
Stay where you are. Nora, show these men out.
Judge Brisson, if you'll answer a few questions...
The whole purpose of this scene, of course, is to establish another possible culprit. So far, we have Journet the innkeeper, who made some nocturnal outing on the night the monster appeared, in the full knowledge that Sherlock Holmes was not in his bed. We have Lord Penrose, who may well be intent on proving the authenticity of the Moors monster. And now, Judge Brisson, retired Judge Brisson. It is to Miles Mander's credit that the terrified old judge he portrays here is miles away from the character he played in the next movie in the series, The Pearl of Death. In this, he appears as Giles Conover, master criminal. Rathbone-Bruce Holmes says of Conover that he pervades London like a plague. No one has heard of him. That's what puts him on the pinnacle of crime. If I could free society of this sinister creature, I should feel that my own career had reached its summit. This, of course, sounds very much like Moriarty, and this, I think, was the intention. But Manders as Conover was more oily than Moriarty, and as one critic observed, he operated like a small timer with aspirations of grandeur. Manders was 4 years older than Rathbone, having been born in 1888, and sadly he died 2 years after this movie was made. In his will, he stated, "I wish to take this last opportunity to express my gratitude to the American people and their government for permitting me to spend the last years of my life in their marvelous country, enjoying the American way of life."
At times, I feel I can almost reach out and touch it. When I first came to La Mort Rouge, I had a slight attack. It affected my legs. But
Very shortly, we shall have another example of the pressures of filming on a tight budget, when Manders makes a fluff regarding his housekeeper.
I'm inclined to accept my hermit-like existence.
Yes, naturally. Tell me, Judge Brisson, had you ever heard of Monsieur Journet before you arrived at La Mort Rouge?
No, I hadn't.
How many of these shirts has your housekeeper purchased for you?
Oh, 4 or 5. I'm not positive.
You still have them?
Well, 1 or 2 became badly worn, and I told my housekeeper to give them to a man who was doing some work for me at that time.
Can you describe him?
No, I'm afraid I can't.
Despite overrunning on the schedule by 3 days, the shooting of the Scarlet Claw was on a very tight rein time-wise. We've already seen 2 examples which would have to be reshot if time had allowed. Potts knocking the table with his postbag, and at the beginning of this sequence, Rathbone rather hesitant with his line about dogs. Manders fluffing a line here is the 3rd one, and they kept them all in.
Splendid. Continue your vigilance, Judge, and under no circumstances allow anyone to enter the house, even someone you may know well.
What's that mean, Holmes?
It may mean nothing, Watson, and it may mean everything. I'm quite sure that Sergeant Thompson will have observed a man with a limp in a village the size of La Mort Rouge. Good day, Judge, and thank you.
Good day, sir.
I'm sure Sergeant Thompson will have observed a man with a limp in a village the size of La Mort Rouge.
Again, we have the spooky voiceover, which enforces the idea of the omnipotence of the murderer. It's a really clever touch.
This is what's left of the Delaport Hotel, Mr. Holmes. Dana sleeps here.
Here we encounter one of the silly weaknesses of the script. It's a small point, but an interesting one, I think. Stay with me on this. The murderer is the actor Ransom, who adopts several disguises, one of which is our friend Potts, the postman. The other, we now learn, is Tanner the boatman, a fellow who has a limp. But as Potts, the murderer does not have a limp. So we must assume that when he is playing Tanner, he fakes it. So surely he wouldn't keep his limp up when he was on his own, as he does in this scene. That takes some kind of dedication. The director Neill must have been confident in Gerald Hamer's changed appearance to show his face in this scene. Certainly with that beard and all that hair, he looks nothing like the simple-looking postman.
I've done nothing.
Then you won't mind answering a few questions.
What do you want to know?
Again, this scene mirrors the rhythm of the plot of The Hound of the Baskervilles, where in essence 2/3 of the way through, the murderer had been identified and his method of crime exposed. But in the case of the Scarlet Claw, that is only part of the mystery solved. The cleverness of this plot throws Holmes an extra challenge. Even if he identifies the murderer, he could be one of several people. His disguise is still the barrier to an arrest.
Because you murdered her.
Holmes, look! In there! The monster!
That's right, Watson. One of Brisson's shirts, which Tanner here treated with phosphorus. Take him, Sergeant. I'll give you all the evidence later.
You got him, Sergeant? I'm sure of it. Come on.
So, the gullible Watson and Sergeant Thompson believe that Tanner is dead, and in fact the case is now closed. But we know that there's another 20 minutes of movie to go. Holmes is sharper. Nothing is that easy. He searches for further clues and discovers the true identity of the murderer. It is, as we know, the actor Alistair Ramsden. Although Holmes is, as one reviewer observed, at his bungling worst in this movie, in that so many people die before he catches the murderer, and then he only catches him by default, but more of that later. Despite this, then, that Holmes is not as sharp as he could be, he does make many interesting deductions. We've had the business about the shirt fragment, analysing the material and the pattern, the dropped paper which helped to unmask Judge Brisson's fake lameness, and now the business with the photograph, deducing its age and importance. This is all authentic Holmes stuff, worthy of Conan Doyle. And much of this is due to the input of Roy William Neill as part of the scriptwriting team. And there are lots of good lines too. The dead can tell us many things, for example.
I'm sure you got Tanner, Sergeant, but Mr. Holmes is never satisfied with a dead criminal. He has to sit in on the post-mortem. Come along, let's go downstairs and celebrate the death of
The plot of The Scarlet Claw is somewhat reminiscent of an MGM movie of 1937, London by Night, a lightweight whodunit starring George Murphy and Virginia Field. The murderer in London by Night was Leo G. Carroll, who went on to star in several Hitchcock films and was, of course, Mr. Waverley in the Man from U.N.C.L.E. series. In London by Night, Carroll played a killer who adopted a series of disguises in order to carry out his crime. The other coincidence is that both London by Night and The Scarlet Claw features a postman, a musical postman, who carries the same tune, the British Grenadiers.
So the great Sherlock Holmes becomes a common thief. You realize, of course, that I might have shot you.
Despite the enthusiasm for The Scarlet Claw from those who were involved in the production, the reception of the critics was lukewarm. In essence, the movie was strong enough to propel the Holmes series into the A-movie bracket, rather than being kept as a B-movie. But reviewers were not impressed. This, I feel sure, is partly due to their conception of the series. They saw it as a cheap money spinner for the studio. It was a series that by film number 6 had lost its novelty value. Well, a cheap money spinner it was, but it was the most successful B-movie series Universal ever had, and they spawned quite a few. But it also had great class. Rathbone was a stylish, authoritative player. This is clearly evident in this scene, which effectively conveys his convincing portrayal and charismatic screen presence. Notice his stillness. He does not gesture or proclaim in a dramatic manner. His arms are still, his hands unseen. He commands with his face and voice. And Nigel Bruce, while not the Watson of the Doyle stories, was always worth watching. His act was one of great charm. Similarly, the supporting players, many of them British exiles, were polished performers. Paul Kavanagh here is a fine example of the accomplished playing within these movies. And Roy William Neill directing this crew, Universal, had a quality product. It is surprising, therefore, that Bosley Crowther of the Times, when reviewing The Scarlet Claw, called the production merely adequate, while Howard Barnes in the New York Tribune noted, Basil Rathbone plays Holmes with rather a tired approach in solving several murders in a village near Quebec. Nigel Bruce, whose fine talents are rapidly buried under the weight of this assignment, does nothing to enliven the proceedings. Later critics looking at the series as a whole, and perhaps with time lending them more objectivity, have been kinder, more sanguine about the Scarlet Claw. The great Sherlockian film critic Chris Steinbrenner stated in the 1970s, "Without question, in retrospect, the Scarlet Claw, with its eerie suspense and expert construction, was the best entry in the entire Universal Holmesian roster."
Judge Brisson was the magistrate who tried and sentenced him.
Operator? Operator, give me Judge Brisson's home. It's urgent. Judge Brisson, this is Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, yes, Mr. Holmes.
The Scarlet Claw contains the most potent ingredients, the clash of the rational detective with the supernatural stroke cunning criminal, the surreal landscape and the enclosed community, darkness and fear and death. As one of the posters said, there is blood on the moon tonight.
I'll lock all the doors and await your arrival. Yes.
As we move towards the climax, we have two of the most impressive set pieces in the movie. Set pieces which would be worthy of a Hitchcock production. The murder of Judge Brisson is chilling and memorable. Paul Sortel's funeral strings serves as a somber background as the housekeeper methodically closes each window shutter before carrying out her dreadful deed. Of course, this is not Nora the housekeeper. It is the actor Ransom in disguise.
That's Mr. Holmes. Show him in.
The actual murder of Judge Brisson is gruesome and particularly graphic for the period when this film was made, and for the type of movie it was.
Hurry up, hurry up.
Holmes seems very slow here in reacting to the cries, and his weakness of action is heightened by him allowing the murderer to slip by. Interesting, for such a gruesome murder, there is very little blood apparently on the murder weapon.
Nora! Nora!
Victoria Horn, who played Nora, had strong memories of making this movie. It was a joy to do, she said. It was like working in a stock company. All the actors knew each other and worked so well together. Mr. Hamer and I shared the darkly lighted scene, and I also remember admiring the great strength of Basil Rathbone when he lifted me from the floor of the closet so easily.
You know who it was?
I don't know. I don't know.
Hello? Operator, Monsieur Journet's cafe. I want to speak to Sergeant Thompson. It's urgent. Sergeant Thompson, this is Sherlock Holmes. I'm at Judge Brisson's. He's been murdered.
Take note of the chiming clock.
Judge Brisson.
It is a clue for later. Not only are we given the sound, but we're given a visual image of it, so we won't forget.
Hotel, on the chance that he'll go there to change his clothes and assume another disguise. Ask Dr. Watson to meet me there as quickly as he can, will you? You'd better come here at once and take charge. Right.
We move on to another set piece, a favourite in all Holmes movies, not just the Universal ones. That's the coming together face to face of Holmes and the major villain. And as always, Holmes is placed in the vulnerable position so that the villain can crow a little. These scenes are always great for brittle exchanges, and in the Scarlet Claw, this is very much the case. Here, of course, the villain can explain his motives and untangle some of the puzzles for the audience. One of the strong elements in this film is the darkness. There have been no exterior shots in daylight, and all the interiors are gloomy with harsh contrasting lighting. This is all designed to effuse a mood of gloom and foreboding into the proceedings.
Throw your revolver on the floor in front of you and raise your hand, Sherlock Holmes.
Hamer in the shadows uses his staccato voice, and the dialogue here is peppered with theatrical references, performance, artist, ringing down the curtain, etc. Quite excellent. Let's take a listen.
You appeared on the scene when you did, and I had to ring down the curtain on the monster.
Your recreation of the monster of La Mort Rouge as a means of murder must have given you great satisfaction. Why did you kill Lady Penrose?
I see no reason why I shouldn't tell you. I couldn't bear the thought of another man possessing her.
And Judge Brisson?
During the trial, I grew to hate him. And when he sentenced me to prison, I vowed that someday I would escape and kill him.
I see. Obviously, you planned still another murder. Otherwise, you'd have returned to the safety of your first disguise and defied me to find you.
You're right. I am. There were 3 people in my life who had no right to live. 2 have already died. The 3rd remains. Tonight, I shall kill him. Mr. Holmes, I've always had the greatest admiration for your talents.
Thank you.
Your performance in this case has also been brilliant. So brilliant that I'm afraid I'm going to have to ring down the curtain on it a bit prematurely.
Mr. Ramson, we are artists in our fashion, not creatures skulking in alleys. If our positions were reversed, I shouldn't think of sending you to your death, lacking a few stray pieces of the puzzle.
What do you want to know?
The name of the 3rd person.
I have no objection. If there is a hereafter, which I doubt, you and he will meet very soon, Mr. Holmes. The name of the 3rd person is...
Coming, Holmes! Look out, Watson!
A corny moment, even for 1944, but at least it does prolong the action some more. The suspense has been increased, now we know there is another murder planned, and, heaven help us, Holmes has to prevent this one.
Thank heaven you came and you did. There it is, Watson. Look out.
So you got away again?
Yes, Watson.
Over that warehouse roof, most probably.
What a fellow's a room.
Yes. This is obviously the secret room where his disguises were created.
Holmes, a rare moment, thanking Watson for his bungling activities. As a youngster, I remember seeing this movie on TV and being thrilled by it and remembering a line which is just about to come up. This Ransom is a paranoic and his orgy of crime is not complete.
Yes, Watson, this Ransom is a paranoic. His orgy of crime is not complete. There's still another.
Penny dreadful stuff in the mouth of a lesser actor, a lesser Holmes. It would sound truly awful, but when Rathbone says it, you believe it. And here I must come back to a familiar theme in these commentaries, the brilliance of Basil Rathbone, whose assured, charismatic and dominating performance lifts these movies out of the commonplace. I can think of no other actor of this period who could have imbued these movies with such magic.
Unexplainable.
Well, what connection can he have with Judge Brisson or Lady Penrose?
Johnny was a guard at Talon Prison, where Alistair Ransom was confined. He's the third person against whom the murderer holds a grievance.
Now he's disappeared.
Johnny disappeared?
Well, so Marie told us in the cafe.
Watson, Johnny's disappearance can mean only one thing. He's in hiding. Our job is to find him before Ransom does. Johnny is the only man who can lead us to the murderer. We'd better have a talk with little Marie.
The final set piece is the grimmest of all the Universal movies, partly because it is done by suggestion and partly it is a death not planned for in the murderer's scheme of things. A gratuitous death, the death of Marie. It is a bold move on behalf of the writers. Again, this is a truly Alfred Hitchcock moment. The jolly music and smiling faces masking the cruel deed that has just been committed. The idea is not unlike the murder in Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, 1950, where the merry sound of the fairground is heard as Robert Walker, the murderer, strangles a young girl. The scene is made more gruesome somehow by the fact that we don't actually see the body and are left to imagine it.
Don't touch anything, Watson.
The playing, one might even say the underplaying, of both Rathbone and Bruce in this scene is quite moving. And for once, Bruce drops his bluster and plays it straight and sincere. Rathbone, knowing Holmes is not an emotional person, uses the appropriate somber tone. Such effective acting is often overlooked by the casual observer.
The murder came in by that door.
He came in through that door, but Marie was not in the room. She alone.
The death of the girl is a very dark touch in this film and elevates it above the standard whodunit plot. Obviously, even at this late stage, Holmes does not seem to know which disguise the murderer is using. He's not aware that Potts is Ransom.
When he questioned her, she became suspicious, and it was then that he killed her. Telephone Sergeant Thompson, will you? He's at Judge Brisson's. Ask him to come here at once. And see that no one leaves the cafe until he gets here. The murderer may be among them.
Neill's final shot in this sequence is also touching. The close-up of the bird in the cage, Marie's bird. In essence, she has become a bird in a cage too, trapped in La Mort Rouge, trapped by the murderer. One of the great weaknesses of the film is the overall concept of Ransom's revenge, and of course the behaviour of his victims. Surely it is beyond normal coincidence that three people who were involved in the life and imprisonment of the actor Arthur Ransom would come to live in the same small, godforsaken community of La Mort Rouge. The name alone would have put you off. Lady Penrose, his lover, the actress, who came up in the world and married into the purple. Brisson, the judge, who sentenced Ransom. And Journet, who was the jailer at the prison, and who, remarkably, changed his calling to become a hotel keeper. All living in La Mort Rouge. The coincidence is stretched too far, I think. It is hard to take. But to be fair, if one examines the logistics and motive of the murderer in Conan Doyle's The Hound of the Baskervilles, one can find similar flaws just as big. The point is that while you are caught up in the sweep of the drama, these things don't matter. And that is what is important in popular and effective entertainment.
We're going to find Journey. Sergeant, you wait here till I call.
Watson do this, Watson do that, Watson get that, no, Watson take that, Watson.
Brisson's house. Watson this, Watson. It's my opinion that Judge Brisson's house is the last place that you'll find Journey.
Put yourself in Journey's position, Watson. Where's the most likely place that Ransom would look for you? Certainly not in the very house in which he's just killed one of his victims.
Journey! Journey! It's Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. We're here to help you.
I don't like the look of it, Holmes. Holmes! Holmes! Where are you?
Here I am, Watson. Journey!
What do you want?
We've come to help you.
How did you know I was here?
When you called your hotel just now, I answered the telephone. The chimes of Brisson's clock here merely confirmed what I already knew. You must return with me to the cafe at once.
I'm not leaving this house. The murderer's waiting out there in the marshes to kill me the moment I leave here.
Naturally, but first you must have the opportunity. If you return to the cafe, you'll have that opportunity.
That's a foolish line about confirming what I already knew. If you knew it, you'd have gone to Judge Brisson's house straight away. Another of the scriptwriter's sleight of hand. Remember, these movies were meant to entertain in tough times. A 70-minute break from nasty reality, not to be analysed like this. The film's unrelieved darkness continues, and the conversation between Holmes and Journey, filmed in harsh light with a dark background, has both a theatrical feel and is also reminiscent of the German expressionistic school of cinema. For all intents and purposes, both actors could be performing in front of a theatre backdrop with a spotlight focused upon them. The sense of the unreal, the frightening unreality of events, is emphasised by this visual approach. Again, we find the scene touching because of Rathbone's sensitive portrayal of Holmes passing on the terrible news to Journey of his daughter's death. Arthur Hole is equally effective in his response. Quite honestly, both visually and in the performances, you cannot find anything as exciting, fresh, or daring in any B-movie of the 40s than Neill's treatment of this film. And that's what makes it so special.
Put an end to him. How are you going to do that, Holmes?
I'll tell you both about it on the way to the hotel.
So you're really leaving, Doctor?
Yes, Sergeant. Gentlemen, Mr. Sherlock Holmes and I are leaving immediately for London. It's extremely regrettable that the murderer has escaped us, but all our cases cannot be crowned with success. I'm extremely sorry, gentlemen.
Have you no idea where this fiend has gone?
Again, this development in the plot is a nod to the Hound of the Baskervilles. In the novel, Holmes pretends to leave Dartmoor and return back to London in order to let the murderer, Stapleton, feel he is free to carry out his murderous plan and release the Hound in order to destroy Sir Henry. Here is a similar ploy. Holmes and Watson supposedly are returning to London without solving the murders. This is a ruse, of course, to flush out the murderer, with the added cunning twist of Holmes swapping roles, identities with the potential victim. A victim, it has to be said, who is the last target of the killer. Unfortunately, while Holmes has been in L'Amour Rouge, 2 people have died while he has been sweeping about the barren, fog-drenched moors.
Hey, Neill, it's me. But, do you mind if I walk part of the way with you? It's a bit frightening out here.
It's these marshes.
This is almost the very spot where Lady Penrose was attacked.
Rathbone's voice here is dubbed by Arthur Hole, of course, to keep up the pretense that he is actually Journey. This is the 3rd time that the detective and villain have faced each other in the film.
More to be accounted for. You were frightened, Emil. It's strange to see you showing fear. The man I hated at Talon Prison.
Ransom!
Holmes sounds surprised that this man is Ransom.
Yes, Mr. Ransom.
There's a lot of disposing of disguises here. Holmes leads Ransom into explaining, for the audience's sake, the methods and reasons behind his machinations.
Journey's leaving was purely bait to bring you into the open. I merely replaced Journey once he was outside on the street. May I say, Mr. Ramsden, that your disguise as a postman was a masterpiece of ingenuity. Your very choice of the role put you above suspicion.
It was quite easy. I simply disposed of the real Mr. Potts after he had passed his civil service examination and had been assigned to La Mort Rouge.
Disposed of Potts sounds like yet another murder.
It's not my function to be your executioner. My duty is to hand you over to the authorities, which I fully intend to do.
You're an optimist, Mr. Holmes.
No, not necessarily. We're surrounded by police awaiting my signal.
Again, a weakness for Holmes. Shouldn't he have been more prepared for Ransom to run off? He could easily have escaped. Notice also, too, that the policemen are wearing British bobbies helmets. There is a wonderful, daring inevitability about these two men facing each other. The murderer and the father of the poor dead Marie. The man whose daughter has been killed enacting a terrible but justified revenge. One wonders how Journey stands legally, being branded as an executioner. Our sympathy lies with him, of course, but in reality, Journey has committed murder. Bruce's Watson lightens the moment, as always.
Watson, where are you?
Why isn't he here? He was with us a minute ago.
Watson!
Here I am, Holmes.
Where are you?
I've fallen in another hole.
The references to war in the series since Sherlock Holmes faces death, and the patriotic homilies, a strong feature of the early films, reappears here for the last time. As in Sherlock Holmes in Washington, the words are from Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister at the time.
A friendly intimacy with the United States on the one hand, and their unswerving fidelity to the British Commonwealth and the motherland on the other. Canada. The link that joins together these great branches of the human family.
Churchill say that?
Yes, Watson.
If I were cast on a desert island, this is the Rathbone Holmes film I'd choose to have with me. It's dark, mysterious, touched by the supernatural, and so very satisfying.